everyone, this is Gail from Rainbow Food Rocks, Rainbow Healing Wellness, and Rainbow Herbals. I'm about to go live with Dr. Benjamin Benulis. He is the author of a book about to come out in about 2 months, and he is talking about the same things I'm talking about. Pretty much the mission is to help people understand they have the power to heal themselves, and we are kind of joining forces in a sense, in that I'm going to help him with his clients, and then he'll also help me. So just kind of waiting here and standing by for it to start, and then you can listen in. I'm recording this. Okay, so looks like he'll be ready in a few minutes, which is perfect. So I can take the time right now and charge up the phone while I'm waiting for him and chat with you a little bit. So as you know, I was in the Yoga Warrior contest and I did not continue in that. I got to 4th in my group, and I did see a lot of people were taking promos, which was kind of unfortunate because we weren't supposed to do that. And I didn't do that. So I wonder how those people did. I haven't looked into it, and I did sign up for the Miss Health and Fitness contest, and I'm probably going to experience the same kind of thing, but I thought, hey, why not try? So on my Instagram, it's Rainbow Healing and Wellness on Instagram. I am starting to put little daily highlights and post some things, and I think I'm currently like 10th in my group. So if anyone's interested, I'll put links in the description box below. Please go ahead and vote. You can vote daily for free on Facebook, and otherwise you'd have to donate in order to vote. I'm just gonna grab some water here since I'm about to go on with Dr. Ben. Some other updates, let's see. So I haven't been on with Dr. Paul Cottrell in a while. I do still follow his work and help him out in the background. So you can find more information about my thoughts on that probably if you scroll back some posts on Telegram. So I am on Telegram as rainbow_food_rocks. So you can check out the work there. I'm still on Instagram as Rainbow Food Rocks as well, same kind of thing, rainbow_food_rocks. And I have 2 other Instagrams. There's the Rainbow Home Baking and the Rainbow Herbals. So for Rainbow Herbals, I do have a lot of essential oils still straight from India. So if you're interested in those, let me know. Rainbowherbals.com is the place to go for that. If you're looking for more information about things from my book, then you want to go to rainbowfoodrocks.com. Both websites will take you to where you can purchase my book from me. Also, you can purchase it from Amazon and from blurb.com. And what other updates? Let's see. I did enter the Mountain Rose Herbs contest, and I didn't win for that one either, which is fine. I really do use a lot of Mountain Rose Herbs products. And I'll put a link in the description box, so if you want to buy anything from them as well. They sell essential oils just like I do. I have some really rare, unique ones, and I do feel that mine are extremely pure. And I know the source for mine, so I really stand by what I use. I use it to make my shampoo, and as everyone knows, I make my soap, hand soap. I do source out using my oils to have someone local make my bars of soap. And I do sell other products on the store, so not just essential oils, there are hydrosols and chocolates and things like that. And I am also a certified home baker for Arizona. So if you live in Arizona, I can bake for you and ship it to you. So right now we're just kind of waiting for Dr. Ben. And I'm charging up my phone while we're waiting. I got 2 pieces of technology on me. And let's see what else is new. Well, how are you? I'll be probably posting this as if it's a live, even though it'll be pre-recorded. And there's a lot that I've been putting on my Telegram. So I do encourage people to go check out Telegram. On a personal level, I've been just continuing my usual routines of yoga and meditation and lots of stuff with kids and homeschooling, and just starting to write more about this vision I have of how we could do things in a different way, and putting out their thoughts that like we do have enough of a lot of resources. Another update. So I am going on Sean Stone's channel on Friday. I don't know when it'll air, but it'll be Friday morning for me, which will probably be afternoon for him. And we'll be talking just about a bunch of things. So I'm sure we'll talk about my book and such. And you know, the book is, it's like I jumped to the chase. So I was at the library. I was at the Apache Junction Library, which is not too far from me here in Arizona. And I noticed there was one other person that wrote something similar, but didn't quite just go into the recipes. It was more the backs, not the backstory. They didn't have a testimonial like I do, but they went into how they tried all these different diets to try to help autism and ADHD. And I found that really interesting because the person had gone through like the different diets and did observations, but didn't seem to notice about the corn. And I have to go back and look if they noticed about the eggs, but they did notice about the wheat, the gluten, the dairy, and the soy. So I give that person kudos. Looks like the book originally came out in 2006, but was just, I guess, re-released in like 2019. I did go to the recipe section. I wasn't really like super enthused. So I feel like if you were to take that book, which I didn't know existed, by the way, and read that scientific information and their studies, and then go through and read my testimonial and how I tried it out with my 3 kids and myself, that would really give someone like a perfect picture, because I just skimmed over it because I was focusing on the recipes in the book. And I'll just skim by since we have some time right now. I'm waiting for Dr. Ben, but you know, here you can see I have soup, salads, desserts, breakfast, lunches, dinners, you know, all kinds of different food items. And it's very multicultural because I do embrace and love different cultures and different ethnicities and such. So this just kind of jumps to the chase. There's a 3-pager in the beginning, which is something you can find everywhere. It's on my websites and such, just about how I got to the point of doing this. But I wanted this as a resource and something that people could pick up, and then they have a plan ahead and once ready. And it looks like we're almost on. So, okay, let me get my phone ready here. We're about to go live. Sorry for the delay. Okay, I better jump on here. Oh, I want to put my volume
a mom who healed her kids from seeing injuries, most notably autism, ADHD, and some other stuff. So it's going to be a really, really exciting interview. I've known her a long time. I didn't know her full story until recently, and she's going to be sharing it. So her name is Gail Angeles. She's on for the floor and hear her story because it is pretty remarkable. Okay, so then we're going to be going live here in a minute. And so if you guys have questions for her, definitely drop them in the comments below. And because I think we got a lot to ask her today and a lot to learn. It's very exciting. Hey, Britt, good to see you. You and I need to do a live sometime too and have a chat. I'm real excited. Let's see, I accepted the request, but it doesn't seem that. Gail, can you try again maybe? Because I accepted the request. It's not working.
All right, so let's try again here. Let's check my name. Open permissions. I see. You know what? I have to give it permissions, but I wouldn't normally give it permissions. Camera. Let's give it time. Okay, so let's see. Microphone, that's game time. Oops. One second. One second. Okay. On standby. Technical difficulties. Hey, Ben, I didn't have permission set for Instagram. I just realized that my camera and microphone didn't have permission set. So I had to go in and, and do the permissions.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's kind of stuff happens. So we'll start back over it.
Okay.
If you're running into any more errors, sign off and call each other and figure it out.
Okay.
Like, blocked off, so don't worry about customer time.
Okay, super. Thank you.
Very welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so that live ended. We're going to try again. Turn on. Permissions. Contacts, location, phone. Remove permissions if app isn't used. So app permissions. Okay, so let's try again. Turn on camera. So let's see what's going on here. So I have the camera allow using the app, I guess is what I'm going to have to put. Allow using the app. There. Sorry for the technical difficulties. So let's try going back in there. Boom. There he is. Let's get
She's going to come on and share her story because I've known her for a while and I knew that she was into natural health and we had similar stances on diet and on medical freedom and all this stuff, but I didn't really know her backstory until recently, and it's just it's incredible. And so she's going to share.
Okay, let's see if we're up.
And it's going to be real exciting.
All right, so let's see for video. How do I switch it?
Camera.
Yeah, there we go. You're looking at a glass jar.
Yeah, I'm rocking the full.
Let's bring you closer.
I'm rocking the full Vitamix myself. So.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, yeah. I do my super energizing detox smoothie usually in the morning after I juice.
Right. Oh, hey. So I'm real excited to have you on. We're going to talk fun stuff. We're going to have to talk in code maybe because we're on Instagram. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just kind of want to share your story, and I want to kind of give an overview and introduce you, and then have you fill in the details. But what I'd really like to do is we can talk about the whole process, like the journey, like a lot to that story. But I'd really like to talk about like kind of the beginning and where you're at now, like, you know, where your kids were at when they first started having issues, and, you know, like the difficulties that they faced and the problems that they were having, how bad it was, and then talk about where they're at now, what they've healed from, and just so people have the comparison, because it's a pretty big gap, pretty remarkable story. So why don't you share a little bit about yourself? As I mentioned, you've helped your kids heal from these kinds of injuries that happen after these kinds of things. And so from there, take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so Gail Angeles, I'm the author of Rainbow Food Rocks. I also have Rainbow Healing Wellness and Rainbow Herbals. So you might have seen me on Instagram. And I'm the one that has the 2 daughters that had certain injuries. We'll use that code there. And it's a long story. So to pretty much break it down, in 2015.
Let's talk about like where they began and where they're at, and then we'll talk about the healing process is long and there's lots of like, you know, ins and outs and what have you. But I just want people to understand the contrast, like how bad they were and how much they healed.
Okay, so just juxtapose those first. Got it. So
yeah, a lot of people think either A, it doesn't happen, or B, if it does happen, that's it, you're host, right? Or you can't get much better. So, but your kids have had a really profound healing. So share that juxtaposition, please.
Sure. So we'll take my oldest daughter for starters. And she, after the first one, right after she was born in a birthing center, was crying ad infinitum. And I was always very concerned, and then I followed suit with the normal schedule for those things. And each time it seemed to get worse. And then about age 4 for her, which was in 2015, I started noticing that something was severely wrong. My background is that I worked with children in public schools and private schools, and I had been working with children officially from when I was 19. I was specifically trained in watching the development of children from mobile infant all the way up to elementary. And I was given training, I guess we could say kind of by the government for a few months for free, very intensive, nice training. So I knew how children should progress, and I knew certain things to look for, but I had never actually, up until that point, known too much about autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, anything like that. When I did ASQSEs, for instance, with migrant Hispanic children, I was looking for certain things to make sure that the children were getting their basic social and emotional needs met, and certain things were occurring, or if they weren't occurring, what was going on in the household. So jumping back to what I was saying, so I started noticing something's really off, and I took my oldest daughter to, originally it was just to a regular medical center, and eventually to a naturopathic medical doctor who also does home births. And I had just had my, maybe like it was like a year or so into having had a home birth for my second daughter, my youngest daughter. And so I started noticing that my oldest daughter was doing a lot of like spitting, moaning, groaning, drooling from the mouth, acting schizophrenic, seeing things that I couldn't see or perceive, talking to them, and then getting ideas to do things like try to stab me with a pencil, or, you know, really, really kind of bizarre things that I had never witnessed in another child, even working with many, many children. And I was getting scared. I was embarrassed. I was like, what's going on? Are people gonna think I'm a bad parent? And I was also watching other children at that time. I had my youngest daughter, trying to remember at that point. Oh, actually, I had also had my son, if I'm going back in time now and thinking about it. So I had 2 younger children while this was going on. One was an infant.
You were realizing basically you were coming to the conclusion that she had autism, but she was on the autism spectrum.
Yeah, so when I went to the naturopathic medical doctor, she suggested that we go to the Seattle Autism Center. I lived in Seattle, Washington, Seattle Children's Autism Center to be specific. And that's where they made the formal diagnosis that, according to the DSM, that she met all those criteria. And I was kind of in shock, to be honest, because I couldn't imagine, like, I was living in it, so I wasn't seeing it from an outside perspective. And so, I mean, I knew that something was wrong. I mean, she was going like this and doing the moaning, and she was so highly intelligent in IQ, but she was suffering in the socials. She did actually make eye contact. That was something I was always very big on from the very beginning, because I had worked with children. So they did note that she did actually make eye contact, but she was suffering in a lot of other ways. And I'm going to tie this into my youngest daughter had been getting her things on schedule. And the reason why I gave the backstory about the development is because it's going to tie in right now, is that my youngest daughter was progressing as she should month by month. And then after one of these, around, I want to say 5.5 months old, and I used to document with pictures, everything. She started to not be able to go on her belly anymore. So she had gotten to the point where mobile infants, they roll onto their belly and they start building up the muscles so that they can eventually push themselves up, and then they can come up and they can start walking. And she went and reversed, and she started having pain in her leg where that had happened. And she also, I'm trying to remember now, she's going back, she started getting stomach pains. And that came kind of later on as well, what happened was, because she wasn't developing, she started scooting on her bottom everywhere. And then when she could finally like pull herself up, she started pushing her stomach into things because her stomach was always bothering her. At 13 months old specifically, and I noted all this for physical therapists and all kinds of different practitioners I saw, because they thought maybe she had spina bifida, so we had gotten an MRI, and we were put down all these different rabbit holes, only to find out that it was actually caused by something in food. We'll get to that. But what I'm getting at is she was in so much pain from her waist down, and this is my youngest daughter that we're talking about, that I was extremely concerned. And she was able to say, and I'm trying to remember verbatim, but it was something to the effect where you could put a period at the end of her sentence that like, mommy, I have owie, and she would point to her like hip leg area. And so she was communicating as much as she could. And for 13 months old, it was phenomenal how she was able to use her language. And again, that's my youngest daughter. My oldest daughter was having more of the communication issues at the time. So there I was, totally stressed out and trying to figure out what's going on with my oldest daughter. And we just get this diagnosis going on my youngest daughter, and she still hadn't gotten a diagnosis, and going through all these different therapies. And why isn't she progressing, and what's wrong? And I'll tell you that most people were family-wise looking at me like I was doing something wrong, like there was something wrong with me. Oh, it's because I homeschool, it's because I watch other kids, it's because whatever they came up with. And I was taking it really to heart, like, oh my gosh, you know, what is this? I'm not doing this, what's going on? So I became like really determined, because that's my personality, of how am I going to solve this? How am I going to figure out what's going on, and how am I going to help my kids? So I got into research mode and started first for my oldest daughter looking into what I could do, because they wanted to put her on meds, and I didn't want that. And I knew right away that I would never go in that direction. That's just the way I am. And so I'm trying to think what happened next. So then I started doing some reading, and well, do you want me to just jump to how she is now, or do you want me to go into the story at this point?
Like the real bullet points of like what they were dealing with in the beginning, and how they are now, and then we kind of got a lot into the process. And I think just people understand, like, just give us the like, hey, oldest kid was dealing with autism, the youngest kid was dealing with like this hip issue, and just like the bullet points on both of that, and then get into where they're at now.
Okay, so we kind of just covered pretty much what was going on with them. And then my youngest son was also breaking out in his hands from what looked like eczema, but he was gnawing so much on his fingers because something was bothering him so much. And he had also gotten he was on the schedule for that. And so he started getting staph infections on his hands and fingers. And that kind of got me to the point of like, what the heck's going on now? I have 3 kids that are having problems. And so going fast forward to just juxtapose, now my kids are fine, meaning when I say fine, that my oldest daughter doesn't drool, moan, flap her hands, doesn't have the inability to communicate, doesn't have all those other issues that go along with a common diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. And she doesn't have that like off the wall schizophrenia kind of thing going on, or hyper activity like ADHD going on. My youngest daughter, she walks just fine. She can do gymnastics. We go to the park almost every day. She's running, skipping, jumping, climbing, you name it. And my son, my very youngest, is doing wonderfully as well, and doesn't have any rashes or any infections or anything. So that gives you kind of the quick juxtaposition of like, well, how were they, which is kind of a story in itself. And then, how are they now, which is what we would view as how a child would normally be at this point in time.
So that's a pretty big gap. And, these are all things that are often written off as just common things that kids get them, and I've worked with a lot of, autism moms and kids with a lot of these issues, and it's just treated as normal, and these kids just grow up the rest of their lives inhibited by this stuff. And so what I'd like to do next is just, I know that like nutrition played a big role, and there were some other things involved, but that played a big role in their healing. And I think that generally in the like autism community, especially the ones that are like going the nutrition route. I think a lot of things they do are misguided, and I see what you're doing, and I think it's spot on. So can you kind of just give us the overview of, I mean, obviously it was a process to figure out what worked, but like ultimately, like what did work? Like what kind of nutritional protocol did you follow to do this? And like, how's that been?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you, it's really quite simple, and I'll just tell you in like the most brief way how that is. So I took out dairy, and Abigail, my oldest, got 25% better. Then I took out wheat, but I made a mistake of substituting corn. When I finally figured out the corn, I took out the wheat and the corn on top of having taken out the dairy. My oldest daughter got 50% better. When I took out, so now we're compounding it, right? So we got the dairy out, we got the wheat out. That means the rye, the barley. I took out the gluten, I took out the corn. So I take out the soy and anything that's artificial numbers, dyes, anything that says natural flavors, artificial flavors, doesn't matter. That all goes out 75% better. So that's giving you some, boom, 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 boom. And that's the order in which I took them out. So that's the order I usually suggest people to take it out to look and see for themselves. And with each one, it took about 2 weeks to notice. And then the last one was the result of doing an IgG food sensitivity test. That's the one where the finger gets pricked and you put the blood on 5 circles and test about 100 or something foods. And that one showed that eggs needed to be taken out for my youngest daughter. And I applied all of these things that I'm saying to all 3 kids. And I had to set the example, which means I had to do it myself. And we're only talking about kids here. There was a whole healing journey for myself, and we can get into that another time or later. So that would be the first parameter. So like if you're baby stepping, I would normally tell people first take out the dairy, then take out the wheat and the corn and the rye and the barley and anything with gluten, then take out the soy, the artificial numbers, dyes, colors, yada, yada, yada. Then go and take out the eggs, which is always a surprising one, but most people nowadays cannot handle eggs, interestingly enough. And if you want, then you mastered that, you want to take it a step further, then I would go into transitioning to recipes like I have in my book and like Dr. Ben's going to have in his book. And then going from there, we both, and I believe Dr. Ben has as well, we have both taken out meat from our diets for quite some time, and we have had phenomenal success with that. Now, my children still eat meat from time to time, not very often, and we usually have other ways of getting the nutrition. I don't, yeah.
Perhaps a second, because I think it's easy to talk about like, and I didn't eat this, and I didn't eat that, and I took this out, I took that, and people are like,
what's left? What do you live off of? Water, right? I know I get that all the time.
Talk about, because we can talk about what, all the things that are bad all day long, but like here I got the smoothie, I got the bananas, the mangoes, and the greens. Okay.
Well, I'll give you visuals. No problem, Ben. So,
yeah.
So if you want visuals, like let's talk about breakfast, lunches, dinners, desserts, and you name it. So take that whole process and the whole story I just told you, and now put it into practice where you have the ingredients, a plan ahead, a once ready, what materials I use, and so on and so forth. So let's just kind of skim through. There's my son with me in my kitchen. So you can see all these different meals. And I'm going to get into answering your question. I'm just showing because people often think that I don't have a breakfast, a lunch, or dinner, or dessert. So I'm just kind of showing really quickly.
That they can get, right? Can you just tell us again the name of it, where they can get it?
Yeah, it's called Rainbow Food Rocks, and it's on my website, which is rainbowherbals.com. You can also find it on rainbowfoodrocks.com. You can find it on Amazon, and you can find it on Blurb. You can get the e-copy from my website. So specifics, when you're looking to go to eat, like let's say you're going to the grocery store, you're going to want to go on the outer edges, which I'm sure most people have read before. You're going to want to look for your fruits, your vegetables. You're going to want to try to find, if you have children, which fruits and vegetables they'll eat. And that's going to be a baby step process because most children, especially with autism and ADHD, have difficulty. There are lots of sensitivities to textures and colors and smells. So trying to work your way slowly with one and then adding something else. Because if you're just going to make a super smoothie like Dr. Ben's showing and give it to your child with autism, they're not going to take it. Don't go there. It has to look first and foremost like something that you would normally see that looks great, which is why I was showing pictures. Because if a child sees like, oh, maybe the child loves strawberries and they see strawberries. Okay, well, how many different ways can I put strawberries into things and still get them into healthy things? And then, and then just baby step from there. But first and foremost, you're going to want to get those fruits and vegetables in. And then I usually recommend making a broth. So for me, because I don't eat meat, mine is made out of the vegetable ends and other vegetables. And I use that broth as a base when I'm cooking so I can get extra nutrition in for my children and myself. And I'll put all kinds of things in there. And we can get into that if you want to later on. But pretty much I have everything set up in a way that now it's quick and efficient. But in the beginning, I mean, I started in 2015, here I am in 2022. There was a whole process to this. It's not just going to happen overnight. It's not like you can just go, here's a super energizing detox when you give it to your kid, they're going to love it. No way, that's not going to work. So does that kind of help?
Because I see a lot of the, I'm pretty connected to the autism community, and I see a lot of these moms who are, trying to make things that are like dairy-free, gluten-free, and they're still eating a lot of processed foods and so a lot of things that maybe don't have the allergens, but still have a lot of unhealthy stuff in them and aren't really whole foods.
Mm-hmm.
That is a pitfall.
You just made me think of something, if you don't mind me interrupting before I forget my thoughts. Very important for your audience to hear this. Learning how to read ingredients, I think, is absolutely important, because when you're baby stepping, you're going to have to start with some of the conventional stuff. And nowadays, there are some better things out there to transition to something like what Ben and I are doing. And so reading those ingredients and knowing, okay, citric acid in the United States comes from corn, ascorbic acid, corn, canola oil, bad, like just knowing right away and looking at your ingredients, and the fewer ingredients that are organic that you can find made from the whole food item is going to be better off to start. Go ahead, Ben. No, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just didn't want to lose my thought.
The next question I was going to ask is like, what are the pitfalls? Like, what are the mistakes that maybe you made, or you see other parents who are trying to do this kind of stuff making? Like, what are the mistakes, and then what are the solutions to those mistakes?
Yeah, I see that all the time. So what I see is, it's probably not nice to say this, but it's more like well, this is just easier, so I'm just going to do this. It's just easier to order a pizza. It's just easier to get this pasta. It's just, and instead of going and feeling empowered and taking charge and being like, okay, I know what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to sell it. I mean, you kind of have to sell it to your child in a sense, and you have to look like you're enjoying it. So number one is, if a parent's sitting there eating Dunkin' Donuts while the kids are trying to go on, and I experienced this, by the way, firsthand with a family member in my household. If the parent's eating Dunkin' Donuts in front of the child and you're trying to get the child to eat better, that's not going to work. It just turns everyone against each other. It's horrible. So, number one. Number two is that whole this is easier, so I'm just going to do this, so that can be a big problem. So empowering the parent and then getting the other parents on board, and getting the other parent on board, in my case, didn't happen until about a year ago. So, that can be a struggle. And then, what do you do about that? Does the parent have to eat their stuff out somewhere else? So, I mean, that's a whole long discussion that I'd have to work with someone depending on his or her situation.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of let's be honest with people. Like, this isn't easy, right? But
not one bit. I mean, the whole family has to be involved. And if you are going to functions and your family members are about you and they're trying to serve them dairy, well, you're saying, I'm sorry, we're cutting out dairy. We're doing an experiment. We're trying to see if my child gets better, or if I get better, or whoever it is, that's going to be a huge problem. And then how do you think about that? How do you plan for that? So for me,
I have this proactive approach where I have to carry food everywhere I go. I have to bring meals in advance. I have to plan meals in advance, which is why in my book, there's the plan ahead, because I have to fit in little bits of time, a little bit of prep work here, a little bit of prep work there, and then put it all together. And putting it all together is the easiest part, but the prep work in between, it involves some thinking and going out in public. And, you know, what are people going to say, do, what kind of social things are going to go on, then that's a whole other layer. And then one more is if you have your child going to school, then there's the extra layer of how is this going to work out? So for instance, when my children tried out public school for a year, and we tried 3 different schools, and, you know, there was this piece of like, okay, well, my child's going to have to sit somewhere separately, perhaps, or if your child wants to or not. My children want to sit in the office. They didn't even want to sit with others. So, I mean, there's that whole extra layer too, when you start getting into school situations, and that's another thing we can go into another time.
Sure. So what I want to give people like a place to get started. So obviously your book is like a really good jumping off point because the recipes are parent friendly, kid friendly. You know, it's like, hey, okay, Dr. Ben's a bachelor. He just, you know, sits in his bedroom, drinking straight out of the Vitamix. You know, it's like, it's easy for him, right? And I feel like one of the things that I really like about what you do is like, you've had to deal with like 3 kids. You know, husband wasn't on board until recently. Like, you've overcome like every crazy roadblock that a lot of people run into. Like, you've had to overcome all of it, and it seems like a lot. The book is a really good place to get started. What other resources do you have? If I don't know if anything, or we just want to point people to the book for like somebody who wants to take this journey and just basically begin and like eventually get to the point where you're at. Like, what's your advice on that?
Well, I do offer coaching and consulting. So I have life coaching that I'm certified in, and then I do consulting specifically on health and wellness and these exact topics. So for instance, I have a client that has a certain diagnosis, is like, okay, I don't even know where to begin. So one session was teaching how to read ingredients and what's what, and just kind of knowing. And that client took food items and was like, okay, here's this, what should I do with it? I said, the first thing I said to the client was, turn it around, let's look at the back, because they always look at the front, the pretty pictures and the marketing, and that's the big hype now. They want to make money off of people like us. So I always say, take it, turn it around, look at the ingredients. But I mean, that's just an example of like my first session with the person, because the person was like, I don't know what to do with all this. You know, I'm trying to eat this and try that. And I was like, okay, let's go to reading ingredients. Like, that's just number one. And then from there, then you can work on all the other issues. So I do that. And coaching and consulting are very different. So the coaching is more of guiding someone. The consulting is they're asking me and I'm telling them, okay, I'm teaching them skills like, okay, do this, 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 and this.
Gotcha. Yeah, and both are important. Yeah, we're getting lots of likes on that.
And where to go for that, it's the rainbowherbals.com. And so you and I had talked about, so if you have a client and you're doing your chiropractic work, and your chiropractic work can only take your client so far. If your client wants to take the next step, then working with someone like me could be advantageous for your client, for instance.
Yeah, and it's sad because a lot of them are just like, yeah, it's too much to make these diet lifestyle changes. But it's like, when they see like the results that you got, it's like, if you can save kids from these fates, it's like, isn't it worth it? Like, isn't it worth just doing whatever it takes? And I think that for a lot of people, it's sort of like, oh, that's just impossible. That these kids can't get any better, or they can only get so much better. And so I really love your story, and it's like, people need to know that there's hope, and that like this can happen. It's not easy to do, but I really love how you like mapped it out and basically just run into every conceivable obstacle and overcame all of them. It's like, it's very admirable.
Thank you.
So I feel like we've covered everything we can cover. I mean, we can go more in depth on like what to do, but I think this was really valuable for people. I want to open it up to Q&A.
Yeah, let's have them ask some questions.
I know someone had asked, or let's see, Elizabeth asked, would this protocol be a good general use for someone with sensitivities and allergies?
Food allergies or regular allergies? I think for both, yes.
Yeah, because you're basically eliminating everything that could be an allergen.
Your typical ones. And there's a reason why these foods come up too. And you and I didn't go into that. But I mean, I'm not surprised now that I've done the research into each of these foods. It's not the food's fault. It's what's being done to the food. And that's the key thing that we need to all get on board with is what's being done to our food. Why do we have to omit these and go to alternatives? So that's something to pay attention to as well.
Yeah, because when you and I were kids, there was no celiac disease, gluten intolerance, kids with egg allergies.
No.
That didn't exist.
No, we barely heard of any of this. It wasn't until we were about teenagers, 20s, especially 30s that it started coming about. I mean, I didn't even hear about celiac until I was in my 30s.
So you alluded to things that are being done to the foods. Can you just kind of give us an overview of like what's going on to these foods and why it's causing them to be foods that were once maybe considered good or okay for us are now like, you know, like.
Well, for certain things, I mean, when we're talking about, you know, the thing that we were mentioning earlier, I mean, certain animals, if they're getting things put in them, or if they're eating food that's been sprayed, or food that's been genetically modified, or if some of these foods themselves have been genetically modified. I mean, it varies from food item to food item, but generally we can see that between this kind of stuff going on and the chemicalization and the herbicides and pesticides and rodenticides and all those things that are going, and it's not even just our food. I mean, it's going in our air, it's going in our water, it's on our clothing. It's like, it's all over. It's no wonder that people's systems, because my belief is that our bodies are meant to detoxify and we have everything that we need. But when that toxic load gets way too high, it's almost impossible to detox. And I'm an example that I didn't go into the story, but I was accidentally exposed to mercury. And I didn't know that. I thought it was just the stress of healing my kids and the household, you know, the squabbles of trying to heal my kids. But I was also exposed to mercury, and I had always been a healthy person. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do drugs. I never have done this. So for someone like me to even have gone through this whole process and having to use this and actually beyond this, more like Dr. Ben of mostly fruits and vegetables and just things that we can find in nature, to heal myself, it says a lot about what's going on in the world.
Yeah, totally. And that's like could be a whole other 2-hour discussion.
Yeah, which is why we're in the same groups, because we started having the same realizations, like, okay, what's going on with the technology? What's going on with the medical industry? What's going on with, you know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So.
Well, hey, I think we did a really good job of telling your story, and I think it's something that a lot of people need to hear. So I'll be making like a YouTube version of this, and we'll share it and stuff. But just before we go, I want you to plug the book one more time, and then just give us the info again on like where we can find you, obviously on Instagram, but also I know you're on YouTube and stuff like that. So.
Great. Yes. So Rainbow Food Rocks, you can find at rainbowfoodrocks.com, rainbowherbals.com. That's with an H for herbals. Then let's see, YouTube is Rainbow Food Rocks is one channel. That's mostly about like food and recipes. And then Rainbow Healing and Wellness is kind of where I put everything else. And then same for Instagram, there's rainbow_food_rocks. It's the same on Telegram as well. Also for Instagram, there's Rainbow Healing and Wellness, and there's Rainbow Herbals if someone is interested in really pure undiluted essential oils and hydrosols and body products that I make with those oils. And then Rainbow Home Baking if someone lives in Arizona and is interested in having me bake. I do make fabulous rainbow cookies that are everything free, which are, if anyone comes from New York, they would know what those are. They're kind of specific to New York and New Jersey. And see anything else. Let's say I mentioned the Telegram, I mentioned those.
I think those are the major ones for right now.
Okay, cool. Well, hey, good having you, and we'll have to do another one of these sometime. Thanks for sharing.
Well, thank you. And I also did a recording too, just so you know. So I'll put up whatever I've recorded here of our conversation. I don't want to have your picture on it, but they can hopefully hear you. I'll check the video, see if it came out okay.
Okay, well, we'll get it out there one way or another, Gail.
Cool.
Thanks.
All right,
Okay,
thank you.
bye.
Bye, everyone. All right, so that just ended. So I should have shown you a picture of Dr. Ben. Let's see if I can show you. Oh, you can barely see. So that's Dr. Ben. So he's going to put up a copy on his YouTube, and then I have this one here. So I'll put this up on my channel, and hopefully it's worthwhile for all of you. And I hope you've enjoyed it. And my little thing with technology, I got to actually put the permissions back, so I'm not letting my phone listen to me. So have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you on the next video. Ciao.